Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Imagine a world where love flows as freely as a river, nourishing everything it touches. In this world, there's no fear, no jealousy, no hatred, only pure unconditional love. This might sound like a fairy tale, but it's the world that the 13th century Persian poet and Sufi mystic Jalal ad-Din Muhammad Rumi talks of. But why should we care about what a poet, a Sufi mystic from hundreds of years ago, thought about love? Well, if we look at ourselves or around us, we can see that many people are suffering. We are suffering. We are sad, angry, or scared, often because of how we think about love and relationships. We might be upset because someone doesn't love us back, or we might be afraid of losing someone we love, or we might get frightened or furious when the people we love doesn't act the way we suppose them to. Because of all these feelings of anger, fear, and sadness, we sometimes even hurt our loved ones unknowingly. As a result, we constantly strive to be loved, to be cared of, to have a sense of security. And if these conditions of ours are not met, we suffer and become miserable. According to Rumi, all this suffering comes from our misunderstanding of what true love really is. We often mistake love for attachment, for fireworks, for drama and dysfunction, when in fact love is very quiet, very still, deep and calm. Love makes no conditions, no ifs, no buts. Love never says, "Fulfill these requirements, then I will love you." Love gives freedom. It gives freedom to oneself. It gives freedom to others. A love that becomes a bondage is not love. Love is like breathing. When it happens, you are simply love. One is not in love, but one is love. Love is a state of being, a state of no mind, a state of silence, a state of meditation where you are overflowing with joy, with ecstasy, where you are so centered, so much rooted in your being that the presence or absence of a person doesn't affect you. According to Rumi, if we could understand and feel this kind of love, we could experience heaven here and now. Rumi is most famous for his expressions in poetry, which mainly revolves around opening ourselves up to divine love so we can find union with what we could call God. This video serves as a humble attempt to explore Rumi's idea of love. It serves as an interpretive work based on a selection of Rumi's poems. We will also see how his thoughts connect with other great thinkers and traditions from around the world. When most people think about love, they might picture a romantic couple holding hands, or a parent hugging their child, or mutual affection between two people. While these are indeed forms of love, but what characterizes this form of love is that there's always something outside of us necessary to fulfill it. Therefore, we are often searching and looking for love, hoping that we'll find that special person that can make us whole. But once we think we've found it, it slowly becomes clear that this is not it. Nevertheless, strong attachments form, and when we're separated from what we think we love, we discover that what we believe to be love is very close to dread, sadness, and agony. But Rumi's vision of love goes far beyond these everyday experiences. To understand Rumi's idea of love, we need to expand our minds and hearts. Rumi says, "Love is the bridge between you and everything." For Rumi, love isn't just a feeling between people. It's a universal force that connects us to all of existence. It's like an invisible thread that ties us to the trees, the animals, the stars, and even to people we've never met. It doesn't require anything outside it to fulfill it or to make it whole. It is complete in itself. Like Rumi says in one of his poems, "The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was." Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They're in each other all along. These lines emphasize on the fact that the love we're looking for isn't something we need to find outside ourselves. It's already inside us, and it's inside everything and everyone around us. It's not uncommon that when one is touched by the depth of Rumi's words, one experiences a sense of liberation from the things that usually concern us deeply. Things like wealth, physical beauty, power, social status, and even people. The love we may feel for such things does not appear to be what Rumi refers to in his poems, even though it may appear to be so to someone who is unfamiliar with mystic concepts. Rumi himself appears to be deeply in love, just not with a physical human being, but with something else, something higher, something that the mind cannot comprehend and words cannot describe. This can be evident from one of his poems where he writes, "Know that my beloved is hidden from everyone. Know that she is beyond the belief of all beliefs. Know that in my heart she is as clear as the moon. Know that she is the life in my body and my soul." One of the key aspects of Rumi's idea of love is that it's unconditional. This means loving without expecting anything in return, with no ifs and buts. It never says, "Fulfill these requirements, then I will love you." It gives freedom to oneself and to others. It's very different from the way many people experience love in their daily lives. Often, our love comes with conditions. We might think, "I'll love you if you do what I want," or "I'll be happy if this person loves me back." This kind of conditional love is what causes much of our suffering. Rumi expresses this idea beautifully in one of his poems. "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." What Rumi is saying here is that love is already all around us and within us. It doesn't depend on anything outside of itself. It's like a well that never runs dry, no matter how much water you take from it. When we love this way, we don't need the person or thing we love to be perfect or to stay with us forever. We love simply because loving feels good and right. This kind of love isn't just for special people or mystics like Rumi. It's something we can all practice. It starts with understanding that love isn't something we need to find or earn. It's already inside us, like a seed waiting to grow. Our job is to remove the weeds of our fears, jealousies, ego, expectations, and attachments that stop this seed from growing into a beautiful plant. This concept of unconditional love is beautifully expressed in one of the poems of Rumi, where he says, "This is love, to fly toward a secret sky, to cause 100 veils to fall each moment. First, to let go of life. Finally, to take a step without feet." We often confuse love with attachment. We might say we love someone, but what we really mean is that we want them to behave in a certain way or make us feel good. This is what Rumi would call attachment or desires, and not love. Here's a simple way to understand the difference. Attachment says, "I love you because you make me happy." Love says, "I love you, whether you make me happy or not." Attachment is like holding on to something tightly because we're afraid to lose it. True love, as Rumi sees it, is more like holding our hands open, allowing things to come and go freely. When we confuse attachment for love, we often end up suffering, which can be in the form of fear of loss, anxiety, jealousy, disappointment, sorrow, heartbreak. However, Rumi believed when we experience the agony of heartbreak or sorrow, it can become a door to true divine love. As Rumi says, "The agony of lovers burns with the fire of passion. Lovers leave traces of where they've been. The wailing of broken hearts is the doorway to God." At another instance, he says, "Whenever sorrow comes, be kind to it, for God has placed a pearl in sorrow's hand." So how do we move from attachment to true love? Rumi's answer is simple, but not always easy. We need to let go. Letting go doesn't mean not caring. It means caring so deeply that we're willing to allow things to be as they are, without trying to control them. It means loving people for who they are, not for what we want them to be. It means to go beyond one's expectations and judgment. It means finding joy in the present moment, rather than always wishing for something different. Rumi expresses this beautifully in another poem. "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about." Rumi's profound insights into love resonate across cultures, religions, and philosophical traditions, the universality of which suggests that his understanding taps into a fundamental truth about human existence and our relationship with the world around us. For example, the Buddhist concept of metta, or loving kindness, bears a striking resemblance to Rumi's idea of unconditional love. In Buddhism, practitioners are encouraged to cultivate a loving kindness that extends to all beings, regardless of their relationship to us. This practice begins with self-love and gradually expands to encompass family, friends, neutral persons, difficult people, and eventually all beings in the universe, which suggests that true love is not selective or conditional, but all-encompassing. Furthermore, the Buddhist concept of non-attachment aligns closely with Rumi's teachings. In Buddhism, attachment is seen as a source of suffering, while non-attachment leads to liberation. This doesn't mean not caring, but rather caring deeply without clinging. A story from Buddhist tradition illustrates this. Two monks were walking along a muddy road. They came upon a beautiful young woman unable to cross a puddle without ruining her silk kimono. The older monk picked her up and carried her across. The younger monk was shocked. Hours later, he finally burst out, "How could you touch that woman? It's against our rules." The older monk replied, "I left the girl back at the puddle. Are you still carrying her?" Similarly, in Hindu philosophy, particularly in the tradition of Bhakti Yoga, love for the divine is seen as the highest path to spiritual realization. The concept of prema, or divine love, is very close to Rumi's idea of all-encompassing love. The Bhagavad Gita, a central text in Hinduism, states, "Those who worship me with love live in me, and I come to life in them." Rumi was part of the Sufi tradition, a mystical branch of Islam, and his ideas about love are deeply rooted in Sufi thought. Other Sufi poets and saints expressed similar ideas about the all-encompassing nature of love and its power to transform the human heart. Rabia Basri, an early Sufi saint, expressed her love for God in these words, "O God, if I worship you for fear of hell, burn me in hell, and if I worship you in hope of paradise, exclude me from paradise. But if I worship you for your own sake, grudge me not your everlasting beauty." This idea of loving God for God's sake alone, not for any reward or out of fear of punishment, is a perfect example of the unconditional love that Rumi championed. Mansur al-Hallaj, another Sufi mystic who is famous for his ecstatic utterances of divine love, including the controversial statement Ana al-Haq, meaning I am the truth or I am God, often speaks of the annihilation of the self in divine love. "I saw my Lord with the eye of the heart. I asked, 'Who are you?' He replied, 'You.' Our attachments to worldly life cause us to feel anxious, defensive, and separate from others. Thus, we build barriers to protect ourselves, but by doing so we also separate ourselves from the very thing that we yearn for. In our daily lives, we often mistake possession for love, control for care, and attachment for connection. We cling desperately to people, things, and ideas, believing that this grip will somehow fulfill us. But as Rumi teaches, true fulfillment comes not from holding on, but from letting go. Society often reinforces these misunderstandings. We're taught to seek love outside ourselves, to measure our worth by our possessions or relationships, to guard our hearts against potential pain. Yet in doing so, we unknowingly close ourselves off from the very source of love that resides within us and permeates all of existence. The path that Rumi illuminates is not an easy one. It requires us to confront our deepest fears, to question our most cherished beliefs, to open ourselves to vulnerability. It's a constant process of unlearning our conditioned responses, of peeling away layers of ego and fear, of rediscovering the love that has always been there, waiting for us to recognize it. Every time we choose compassion over judgment, acceptance over resistance, unity over division, we take a step on this path. Every moment we spend in quiet reflection, every act of kindness we perform, every barrier we dismantle within ourselves, brings us closer to embodying the love that Rumi envisioned. As we conclude this video, let us carry forward this profound truth, that love is not something to be sought outside ourselves, but a reality to be realized within. As Rumi would say, "You have within you more love than you could ever understand." Thank you for watching.